age, employer-driven, integrated technical education system. That's what I believe we're trying to create, and I would love some, oh, here comes the tea as well, right? Oh, no, I would love, obviously, feedback on that, but I think that's what Greater Manchester needs. And I'm going to sort of say a little bit today about how I think we build it together, and I stress together. The way we do things in Greater Manchester is, we don't drop things on people, we build things with people. That's how this place is, and it's how we work. We're in a good moment, though, and I don't think Greater Manchester gets a better moment than this. Not just from a sort of political sense, although obviously that creates opportunities for me. I just mean it more in a sort of sense of alignment of things and a moment that makes us, makes us at the forefront of the change that's coming and gives us the moment of maximum opportunity. And I'm referring really to some of the changes that are coming through. It's the King's speech today. And I don't think I'm breaking any confidences if I tell you that there is an English devolution bill in the King's speech. And the principle behind that bill, hopefully that will soon be an Act of Parliament, is that the country will work on the principle of devolution as a default setting, i.e. if something can be devolved, it should be devolved, which, to be honest, is just music to my ears and hopefully yours as well. Some of those frustrations about policy that we were just hearing a moment ago. Well, hopefully we can begin to move to a world where we don't have to have these edicts dropped on us that sort of make no sense when they land here in Greater Manchester. If you think about that, the opportunity that represents, it's massive. And it actually tilts this country permanently away from Whitehall, and Whitehall knows best, to us being able to do more for ourselves, working it out ourselves, and that is what Greater Manchester has been arguing for decades now. And let's be honest, a moment of pride for Greater Manchester today, there would not be an English devolution bill were it not for the people who went way before me in the 80s, who, when the Greater Manchester Council was abolished, they carried on working together as owners of the airport. And then Sir Howard Bernstein, who we lost recently, who kind of more than anybody, I think, made the argument for Greater Manchester to be able to do more for itself, built our city region in that way. The leaders who always stuck together, the 10, even though in other places they didn't, and they all argued here, they stuck together, they carried on working together. They built this, and I'm now building on their foundations. But we've built this, I suppose you could put it like that. The mayors of England would not have been gathered in Downing Street last week were it not for what Greater Manchester has done to sort of put forward an argument how there's a better way of running the country. And actually, if you want growth, you don't get it from a sort of world that I used to be in the Blair or Brown governments, where everyone thinks they can pull a lever there and everything happens miraculously on the ground. It doesn't work like that. Growth is built from the bottom up. Greater Manchester today is growing faster than the UK economy. Productivity here has risen 3 times faster than London in recent times. We are predicted to continue to grow faster than the UK economy. What does that tell you? Devolution is working. Not perfect, and there's more to be done for sure, but it is working. Something is changing. I'm looking around the room, and I'm kind of guessing the vintage of people around the room, similar to mine. When in our lives could we say that Greater Manchester was growing faster than the UK economy? We couldn't, could we? The problem was the opposite when we were growing up, wasn't it? We were growing much slower. Things were going, things were closing. But that actually has changed, and it's those people who built Greater Manchester into what it is today have made that change happen. And the amazing thing about that is there's kind of huge opportunity in our 10 boroughs now that wasn't there before. There's not a sort of narrative of decline that we lived with in the 90s and the early 2000s. We're in a different position. If we're kind of training people, we're not sending them up a dead end where there's no job at the end of it. There are jobs at the end of it. It's not like the 90s when I came back from university here and tried to stay in Greater Manchester, but in the end had to give up after 6 months because there was nothing here. And there was a generation of people of my age who, if they wanted to get on, had to go south. That was just the reality. That isn't the reality of people growing up here now. The incredible breadth of opportunity in our economy, and in all 10 boroughs actually. And we have to be really clear that we need to tell this story better about what's out there. However, and there does come a however, this success story can't be taken for granted. If we don't change our education system now, I believe we will be putting all of that at risk because of the nature of the economy that we have now, the speed with which it is moving. Already, we have concerns about vacancy rates in some of our fastest growing sectors, digital and tech particularly, but others as well. Obviously, you look at healthcare and life sciences and real risks there. You'll probably all be familiar with the 7 gateways, which my team, Gemma Marsh, who's here today, and the team at the Greater Manchester Combined Authority, working with the Greater Manchester Chamber of Commerce, who did that work on the LSIP for us. We then have set out those gateways into the GM economy that we really want to focus on and then structure things around so that we can kind of give clarity to people about the line of sight into the opportunities. Over those 7 gateways, there were 235,000 vacancies over the last 12 months. Now that is a big number. And the reason why I get worried as mayor when I hear a number in one way you could say it's a brilliant number, and I guess it is in one way. For me, it's a worrying number as well, because if this place gets a reputation that you can't find the talent, you can't recruit it, those people who are bringing those jobs to Greater Manchester quickly will look elsewhere, and that's why I don't take this for granted. The Unit for Future Skills has said by 2035, decades time, Greater Manchester will need 91,000 more people going into technical professional roles in digital, healthcare and other sectors, construction. And so, that challenge is massive, and it's right there in front of us. And I personally don't think we rise to that challenge by sticking with what we're doing. I think we need to make change, but change that benefits everybody and benefits everybody in this room. So I just want to start by saying, I want to sort of then go on to say 2 really important things that I think this room needs to hear. Firstly, I want to thank those who've built the Greater Manchester Learning Providers Network into what it is, and it's right in front of me. It's clearly a vibrant organisation. The reason I want to thank you all for working in this way and being a network is because this is you're a forerunner of what we're going to need. We need networks. We need collaboration. We're not going to achieve this via competition. That era, I think, has to sort of go. Collaboration is the way we will rise to the technical education challenge facing Greater Manchester. There'll be a role for everybody, but it's about everybody finding where their role is, building people into integrated networks that give those clear pathways to our residents. That's the point, isn't it? They're who we are here to support in whatever way we can. They don't have clarity at the moment. We've got to give them that, and the clarity comes by people in different parts of the system operating with a high degree of collaboration, so that those pathways around those gateways that I mentioned become really clear, really structured, and then people can see their way through. So that's the first thing I wanted to say, just a few words of praise for the Greater Manchester Learning Providers Network, and to ask you to keep doing what you're doing, but to build up what you're doing now as we move towards this all-age integrated technical education system. The second point I wanted to make is to recognise the role of independent training advisors within Greater Manchester, and the critical role you play currently, but also we will need you to play as we move towards the system that I have been talking about. And I know you may feel sometimes that your role in the system isn't seen. I can assure you it is. I remember as a local member of Parliament in the Wigan Borough, I mean, Anna Dorr from Wigan and Lee College is here today. I remember Wigan and Lee College used to work closely with many of our local independent training advisors. And I think you are seen, but I think we also, though, could give you greater visibility within the integrated technical education system that we want to build. And I think that's what will happen, actually, as we go to as we move towards a system where people can see the gateways. What they will then see is the networks of employers who are collaborating in those gateways to say what they want from the system. And then underneath that, you will see more networks of training providers, independent training providers working with schools, working with colleges. That's what and working with HE as well. That's what we want. That's what we want to see, where the whole sector starts to sort of knit together. So I just wanted to recognise the role of independent training providers. It's huge. And what do you bring that kind of differentiates you, I guess, from everybody else? I've got the highest regard for our further education colleges, and they're working as a group under Anna's leadership, and I really thank them for that. Everybody's moving to more collaborative structures, which is great, and it's what we want. The universities in Greater Manchester have signed a civic universities agreement, and that's great too. As part of the English devolution bill, for any school colleagues in the room, myself and the 10 leaders are starting now to say we think there's change needed in the secondary education system to bring it back to a more collaborative system where there is a greater role for the local authority, more accountability locally. And we are making those arguments to the government. So this is a process we need at every level of the system. But what do you uniquely bring, or many of you in the room who are independent training providers? I think it's the word I would pluck out would be agility. The speed with which the Greater Manchester economy is moving, and I particularly am thinking about the Manchester economy and the city centre economy, is breakneck. The way in which employers are needing new capabilities within sort of months is it's fantastic in one way, but it requires real kind of fleet of foot approach, and that's what I think you can bring. And there are other qualities too, but it's that agility at the heart of an integrated technical education system that we're going to need. If I just say a few words about where we go from here, and then I do want to open up to questions from the room, so everyone gets a chance to sort of get things on my radar. I mean, for those of you who were there, we had a wonderful summit last week in Manchester, mainly with colleagues from the, if you like, pre-16, post-16, thinking about the pathways for young people, very focused on the Greater Manchester Baccalaureate, the MBAC, which, as you know, is a part of this system, about getting the journey right now for the young people growing up here. The truth of the matter is we didn't get the journey right for many people who now are in their 20s, 30s and 40s, and we're going to have to sort of do some retrofitting there to help them get back into the growing parts of the Greater Manchester economy. But let's get it right for those growing up. And we've had a fantastic event where there is huge buy-in, I think, to the MBAC vision. The simple thing is, the best way I can describe it is, at 14, 15, as the kids are coming through secondary school, give them an equal alternative to the university route, a path that is of the same value. And actually, many kids in Greater Manchester will think it's of a higher value if it's a path that takes them to a level 6 qualification without the debt that comes with going on the traditional university route. Now, we can only create that path if we, if you like, rethink a little the way Ofsted works and the way the school inspection system currently works. Those schools are required to kind of demonstrate their performance on the English Baccalaureate, the university-favoured GCSEs. That has to be rebalanced. You cannot have an education system that is more focused on 1/3 of kids rather than the 2/3 of kids who don't go to university in Greater Manchester. And that's where the MBAC comes in, those two, EBAC, MBAC. That's where we're we want to make that correction to the system. And it's why we want to be giving them advice about qualifications that we would say are absolutely of equal value. The idea that the creative subjects are somehow second class is dangerous in my view. Dangerous in a city region like Greater Manchester, where creativity is in our blood. It's the lifeblood of the Greater Manchester economy. Fancy sort of sending a message to young people that music, art and design, drama, all of these things are sort of like, you know, they're almost like not worth taking. They are worth taking. Or go more to an industrial sort of context, engineering GCSE. I mean, it's utterly mad to me to send a message to kids at 14 that engineering GCSE is not a good GCSE. Of course it's a good GCSE. It's actually, you could argue, one of the best GCSEs you could take if you want to make yourself work ready for the Greater Manchester economy. But there's others, isn't there? Food tech, business studies. I mean, you could name a whole list that have been sort of relegated to the margins of the secondary school system in recent times. We've got to send a message back to the kids who have passions and interest in those areas, that those are of equal value to other subjects like history, geography, or whatever. And then I want them to have clarity coming through school about what's available. I want to get to a position where they can apply for a quality work placement linked to a T-level or a BTEC. And here's a policy point I'll be saying to the government: they must not defund BTECs. That would be a serious backward step if that goes on. And in fact, the risks are really right in front of us, aren't they, with the sort of loss of places. Anna was telling me about the health and care students that she would have to turn away in September 25. We cannot let that happen, and we won't let that happen. But what I would like, ultimately, is a system where young people can apply for those qualifications, but actually almost be applying to the employer from school, because that, I think, could have a dramatic effect on aspiration, and it could make them sort of stick with you, if you like, because it will make them feel that the course they're taking is taking them somewhere, rather than the message they've had for many years, but it's a bit of a second-class dead end, and you know, it may or may not get you a job. But we have to correct that, don't we? We have to really get our employers to step up, give us those work placements, and create quality pathways for our young people. We need, I think, as was just being said at the start, to change the funding of apprenticeships. We need more control over the apprenticeship levy here in Greater Manchester. We need to stop the defunding of those apprenticeships for younger people, which we've seen as well in recent times. But I'll come towards the end, really, because I'm conscious I've spoken for quite a while. I think the big prize here is to create this integrated all-age employer-driven technical education system with a consolidated budget behind it that is all the available funding that could be used to support our ambitions. So I am obviously thinking of the funding that is already in post-16 education. I am thinking about the adult education budget that Gemma and her team have really done a great job in pointing more towards, making it more about employability and supporting people on a path towards work. I'm thinking about the boot camp funding that we've had in recent times, the funding that we've had through the Shared Prosperity Fund, the apprenticeship levy, as I just said a moment ago. But there's a bigger prize here. Linked to this English devolution bill coming through to Parliament today, I will be making an early bid to take devolved control of the employment support budget in Greater Manchester. I do not believe that the current approach operated by DWP takes people closer to work. I believe people will often walk into a job centre plus in Greater Manchester and will feel worse about themselves when they walk out of the door because of the way the system is and the distrustful nature of it, the way that it's required to chase sanctions and all of the rest of it. It doesn't get people from where they are to where they need to be. I believe if we had control of that budget and we were able to localise it, personalise it, create new pathways with it for people, I think we would make a much better job of getting people into work. In fact, I know that. We have the evidence because with the Working Well scheme that we ran, and some of you will have been involved in Working Well, we did get more people into work, and we want to build on that and take that to much higher levels. But if you think about that, and then the apprenticeship levy you could add into that mix, if you think about consolidating that funding behind a single vision for integrated technical education, I think you can get a feeling about how we could make some really big change happen. There are kind of too many of our residents who are not active just because they have not had the right support through their lives, and they've ended up in a place where life has worked against them, often through no fault of their own. 71% of adults in Greater Manchester are, well, to use the phrase, economically active, and the target now is going to be 80%. Well, we should absolutely enthusiastically say we will try and get to that together, because there are many more people out there who've got a lot more to give, but in the world we've lived in, they've not been able to give it. But why not? Why can't they be redirected towards the growing parts of the Greater Manchester economy? Given the training that they actually want, rather than what DWP sometimes gives them is something they don't want to do. What's the point of that? How does that get people towards work? It doesn't. So you can see why I'm a little fired up by all of this right now. This is a moment for massive change, everybody, and you are all a huge part of it. As I said, we recognise what you all do, the role that you all play, but you've had to work within a fragmented, disjointed system all of your professional careers, and I would imagine that must be hugely frustrating for all of you, because you're almost working around things at times, retrofitting things, as I said, trying to fix broken things and things that should have happened earlier in people's lives. But imagine if you were working a system that was going with the grain, that was actually making the difference when it needs to be made, where you have that role within it and that place within it, and we can all improve the lives of our residents. Well, we're going to do this. We are absolutely going to do this. We are going to create the first integrated technical education. We are going to send a message out from here that is of equal worth to the academic route. We are going to change lots of lives in Greater Manchester, and through that we're going to keep this economic success story building, and you are all going to be a big part of it. Thank you very much indeed for listening.